Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. I am Martina Lily and today we are going to do a Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette ranking. You guys have been asking for me to do an updated Natasha Denona palette ranking, so here we go. I am doing it. So hopefully that sounds interesting to you guys. If it does, go ahead and do the YouTube things like subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let's get started. For this ranking, I'm going to start at my least favorite and go all the way up to my most favorite. I have almost all of her midis, I think the only Midi palette I don't have is Xenon, I think. And then I have quite a few of her larger palettes, but not all of the larger palettes. And I have almost all of the minis. However, the minis I'm actually just going to do quickly at the end separately in their own little ranking, because I personally wouldn't rank really any of the mini palettes, over the bigger palettes, just because I like the bigger palettes personally. So I'll just do them in like order of my personal color preference at the end. So there'll be timestamps for like the two different sections. Hopefully that's okay. I'm also currently in the middle of filming a video where I do a look with every single one of my mini palettes from Natasha, and this is one of the looks in that video. This is from the Mini My Dream palette. So this will be coming whenever I finish doing all the looks for them. I'll have all the palettes linked down below from different places that you can get them, as well as like the Natasha Denona website. You can also use the code Martina Lily for 15% off on her website. And keep an eye out because she does a pretty decent Black Friday sale normally on her website, and that is coming up over the next few weeks. Let's get into it. Let's start with palette number 19. Number 19 for me is my least favorite in my Natasha collection for a couple of different reasons. So it's the Natasha Denona Pastel palette, or the Midi Pastel palette. Now in terms of like color story around like pastels, it's very pretty. I like that she's kind of got this more like acidy green and like these different kind of blues and this mint green. Like I think they're very pretty, and I really anticipated to enjoy the quality of this one because a lot of these are cream to powder mattes, and I love her cream to powder formula, and I thought they would work really well with the pastel formula. However, I gotta say, unfortunately, the quality of these mattes in this palette, from my experience, just remember all of this is so very much my own opinion, my own personal preferences. So I will probably rank things very differently to you. So it's just a very personal preference and like opinion based. I found the mattes in this palette to be not so great. Very, very average. I found them to be really patchy, hard to build up. Some were better than others, like the pinks were a lot easier to use than the other colors, for example, but I found the quality in terms of the mattes just really, really difficult to use personally. The metallics in here are lovely, and I think the color story of them are very, very pretty. Nothing mind-blowing or out of this world in my personal opinion, but the metallics perform exactly like how her metallics usually perform. But just overall, one being it's super colorful, I'm not going to reach for it every single day, and then also that matte quality not being the best, it's definitely my least favorite. Number 18 is the Love Midi palette from her, and I have to say I picked this up for like 30 Australian dollars. Like I got it on such a sale, like a ridiculous Black Friday sale. So I'm not mad that this is ranking second to last in my collection, considering I paid so little for it and I really did want to collect all of her palettes. The reason why this is ranking so much lower is because I'm just not a reddy eyeshadow person really, and I'm not a purple as like massively either. So like this color and this color not my fave, and the reds in here not my fave. So I think for like certain occasions it's lovely, and I think the metallics in here are beautiful. Like overall the quality of this is quite nice, but just not a color story that I'm personally gonna lean for and reach for consistently. If this is a color story though that you are going to reach for, you will probably get this on quite a steal coming up to Black Friday, so keep an eye out. Number 17 is also another palette that I got for for a very, very, very good price. I think maybe like 40 Australian dollars I got this one for, and this is the Sunrise palette, and I've always wanted this, always wanted it. And I gotta be honest, I haven't even really used this. I think I've maybe used it once, but I always wanted it for like this one yellow shade. I'll be completely transparent. So right now this is ranking so low because the quality is lovely, but her quality has definitely improved like as she's released more and more Midi palettes. But also this color story for me and my preferences right now is just a little bit too warm toned and not something that I want to reach for, especially with these more like reds and purples. I could see if like I switched preferences. I'm more of a neutral cool leaning eyeshadow like person, but I could see if my preferences switched back to being like super duper warm, I would reach for this a hell of a lot more. So it really comes down to like that kind of a preference, and the quality's like still lovely, but it's just improved quite dramatically over like her newer Midi releases. Number 16 may shock you. Maybe. It's actually her new one, the Roxa palette. So this is her kind of purplish palette, and I do like the metallics in here, especially this one. This one is so pretty. Like this is absolutely stunning. I would actually take this shade out and like put it in another palette to use it more because I really love it. And the mattes in here are lovely and everything, don't get me wrong. Apart from Jacaranda here, this one was really patchy and dry in my palette. The other mattes are absolutely lovely, but this overall, the color story is just, it's too reddy leaning. Like this is more of a pink palette than a purple palette from my experience. So I've done a full review. I've actually done a full review of most of these palettes. I'll have my Natasha Denona playlist linked down below for you guys as well, if you're interested. But I've done a review where I've done in-depth swatches of this, and then I've also done another video where I did an additional 3 looks, and I incorporated a more neutral cool tone palettes in creating a couple of those looks, and I liked it a lot more. But I just found like so many of these shades are like same but different that I got a bit bored after using this for like a week straight. And it's just not overly my kind of color preference. Formula is really lovely, like really quite lovely, apart from this one shade. But yeah, I don't know, it just doesn't excite me for some reason. Number 15 is the large Triochrome palette. So I don't think she really does these bigger palettes anymore, which I can understand because these were about 225 Australian dollars, I think about 125 USD. You get the same number of shades as the Midis, but bigger pans. So I personally like the Midi size and Midi price a lot better. I really like this. I think it's absolutely beautiful. The only reason why it's ranking so much lower is because it's just a little bit too colorful for me. On the everyday, I wouldn't reach for this as often. However, I really like the mattes in here. I like the different tones, like this one and this one, like, oh, and this mint, this khaki. Like, I just love the tones of the mattes in here in particular. They are absolutely beautiful, such a high quality and just a little bit different. So I quite often reach for this one specifically for the mattes. I mean, these 3 shades are beautiful, don't get me wrong, and like I love this green, but it's just not one that I reach for consistently because of the color story, but I still like having it because it's a little bit unique. And this is another one that I got on sale for like half price as well. Number 14 is the Bronze Midi palette, and I actually really like this. I picked it up because of these 2 shades. This shade in particular, this like purpley shade is, it is so pretty. Like, it is such a stunning, unique shade. I love it. The Bronze Midi is where you kind of start to see, in my opinion, the Midi quality just like go up a whole other level in terms of like the matte quality and the metallics. I really like this. Even though this is very, very warm toned, I really enjoy using this palette because it's not a warm tone palette that is just, I mean, it does have a lot of same but different shades in here, don't get me wrong. Like, a lot of these more like bronzy gold shades are quite same but different. But I really like that she's thrown in these like deeper shades here and this like reddy shade, but also like this mustard. I love this mustard, for example. So I don't know, I really enjoy using the bronze palette. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And if this is your kind of color story, truly, you cannot go wrong with it. It's gorgeous and the quality is beautiful. Number 13 is a newer one, and you may or may not agree with this one. This is actually the Midi Golden palette. Now I'm preferencing this with, I have the larger gold palette, which, just spoiler alert, ranks a lot higher than the Midi, and I like a lot more than the Midi. This one, the quality is actually really nice. So don't get me wrong, this actually has some of her like newer formulas in it, which is like the wet sparkling foils, for example. It does have about 8 repeat shades from the bigger gold palette, sorry, and I'm assuming she's not planning on bringing that bigger gold palette back, which I think is a shame. I think I would have preferred, just personally, if she was not gonna bring back the bigger gold palette, because I do personally think that is such a popular palette that she could keep it permanent and it would constantly sell out, that it would have just been better to like recreate that palette exactly but in the Midi form, personally. But this has about 8 repeat shades from that palette, and the formula is absolutely beautiful. And I like that even though this is more of a warm leaning palette, you know, she's got these kind of more, not neutral because they're still warm, but like neutral warm shades instead of like those more orange leaning shades that quite often warm palettes lean into. But I just found the quality of these like mattes, for example, versus the matte quality in the big gold palette, there's such a difference in my opinion. I think the matte quality in the bigger palette is like just miles above this one. And then also these like metallics are so similar on the eyes that I really felt like I was just creating kind of like the same look over and over again. There wasn't enough nuance to it, whereas the big gold palette had so much more nuance to it. So yeah, from a personal standpoint, in that respect, this one's definitely ranking lower. Number 12 might surprise you just because I've put a couple of other palettes lower for being so colorful, but hear me out. Number 12 is the Circo Loco palette. Now, I don't know if you can get this anywhere, but I don't even know if you can actually get this on her website anymore. I'll have a look for you guys and I'll put it on the screen. Again, another one that I got on sale, but I love this. Now, this isn't a palette that I would like use on its own. Really, for example, it's kind of too colorful for me personally. I'm more of a pop of color type eyeshadow wearer. However, a lot of you probably know that you can take out each of these shadows in her palettes and like, you know, mix and match them, which is what I love about Natasha's collection. And that's quite often what I'll do, is I will actually take like single shadows out of this palette and mix it into like a more neutral leaning like matte kind of palette and stuff. And that's when I love using these. Like this pink shade is so beautiful on the lids, truly, and like this orange and this kind of like rusty color and this one, they honestly, like when you separate these shades individually and create looks with them, stunning, absolutely stunning. And the quality is so luxe and beautiful and creamy and just molten. They're absolutely stunning. So I actually absolutely love this palette so much more than I ever thought I was going to. I regret nothing, and honestly I'd even repurchase it. I really like it. Number 11, another one I got on a really good sale actually, is the Midi Zendo palette. And I know a lot of people were disappointed in the Midi Zendo just because it was such a stark difference like of color story to what the Mini was, and the Mini was like so popular. But I actually really like this one, more so for these 2 rows right here. I love these shades, like especially this one. This one is, whew, like, it is absolutely stunning. But I also really love these ones that are like cream to powders, and these cream to powder mattes are phenomenal, like absolutely phenomenal, and they perform exceptionally. I like that it's got the mix of cool tones and warm tones. I mean, don't get me wrong, I could do without like these reddy shades here, and that's why it kind of ranks a bit lower. But I also like that there's still these like browns in here, and then you've just got these like beautiful, like these 2 beautiful rows right here. I just absolutely love them, and I personally think the quality of this one's really good as well. So yeah, I actually really rate this one. We're into the top 10, and now's where things started getting a little bit really, well, this whole ranking was a little bit difficult for me, but the top 10 is really where I started to be like, oh gosh, I don't actually know where to put anything anymore. But number 10, I'm gonna put the Natasha Denona My Dream. Now, I will preface this with the My Dream packaging, this pink with the black paint splashes, is number 1 for me. I love this packaging so much. But the actual color story of this one is going to rank at number 10. Purely because Natasha actually created this Midi palette to be like a mixture of her favorite shades from Glam, Bronze, and Retro. Now, I own Glam, Bronze, and Retro, and Glam and Retro, as you will have already seen in this ranking so far, are obviously ranking higher than this. So because of that, that's why this ranks a bit lower, is just because I have like full color stories in those palettes. However, there are some really cool little shades in here that I just really enjoy, like these 3 right here. They're absolutely just stunning shades, and I really love this like Nurture matte right here. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the cream to powder burgundy like shades in here are absolutely stunning as well. The quality of this one is really exceptional, and I always recommend My Dream. Like, if you're someone that actually really wants to try a Natasha Denona Mini palette and has your eye on Glam, Bronze, and Retro, and is kind of like, I don't know which one to choose, which one do I go for, the My Dream is the one to go for, because it's kind of like those 3 palettes incorporated in a way, and it's just a really nice like kind of showcase of Natasha Denona's shades and her formulas, and you can create such a variety of looks with this palette. So yeah, I do really recommend this, especially for like, say, your first Natasha palette. But for me, like, because I have the whole collection, that's why it ranks at 10, but the packaging is number 1. Number 9 is surprisingly the I Need A Warm, because I'm not a massive warm eyeshadow palette lover, as I've already said, but this one I really like. So this is her newer one before Roxa, and this one has a couple of new formulas in it as well, and that's something that I love about Natasha's like releases, is she always is upgrading and bringing out new formulas. And I just love that. And they always just seem to get better and better. But the thing that I liked about this one is, again, it's not just like a massively orange leaning warm. It's not like a super warm palette. It's just more of a temperate one, which I really appreciate. And it just has some of these most beautiful shades in here. And I'm pretty sure I did a 3 looks using this one. And I know, and at the end of that video, I was like, I have had so much more fun using this palette than I thought I would, considering warm tones aren't like my preference like all the time. I just really enjoyed playing with this. I really enjoyed creating the different looks with this. I also think this is a really nice like companion palette in your collection, and you can bring in like cream shadows or like single shadows and create such a variety of different looks. It's just kind of one of those ones that's got all the shades you can kind of need in it, and the formula is second to none. It's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I don't know, and especially if you are someone that prefers a warm leaning eyeshadow palette, I really think this is worth a look in. It's really good, and the quality is just oh. Number 8 is one that when I saw the color story like drop, like the promo pics, I was like, oh my gosh, that's phenomenal. Got it, and I was kind of like, not sure. But the more I use it, the more I love it, truly. It really grows. It's really grown on me. And it is the Midi Retro Glam palette. I love this. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, this isn't going to suit all skin tones, which is a shame. The reason why I love this is there's just a few key shades in here. Actually, let me tell you, this shade, and this shade, they could go. And maybe even this one, like, they could go. And I could replace them with kind of more deeper browns and like, yeah, just different versions of browns and stuff in here. However, these greens in here and like the browns that she has got in here are phenomenal, like phenomenal. And this like cream to powder evergreen shade is one of my favorite matte green shades in my collection. I love even just putting this as like a one and done. It is so stunning and it performs so well. I also really love like the green shades in here, and then Flutter, like, so beautiful. It just creates really stunning simple looks in a way. You can really, like, because these shades are quite muted, it's a really nice way to incorporate a little bit of color into your makeup look without it being like really intense and bold and in your face. And they just perform exceptionally and they look so stunning on the lids, truly. Like, I really like this. And another one that's like good as like if you have, say, a core kind of, like if you're a brown eyeshadow wearer, like, you know, if you have like Glam, for example, or something like that, this is like one of those palettes that you can kind of have as an accompaniment to like add in like extra pops of color and different shades and stuff. I don't know, I just really like this one. Number 7 is one that when I saw the promo pictures, I was like, oh my gosh, how boring, won't use it, don't want it. And then when I picked it up, was like, I love this, and used it and still use it so often. And it is the Retro palette. Now I know people were disappointed in this color story just because, again, it's very different to the Mini Retro, which was like the starter of this color series. But I love this. Now this one has quite a few cream to powder mattes, which I absolutely love. You'll notice that a lot of the times when she has more cream to powder mattes in her palettes, they're quite high on my list. But it's just the shades of these, like, I don't know what it is. And because, like, I have said that I don't like these reddy kind of colors, but there's something like about the cool tone smokiness of these purples and like pinky reds that I can't get enough of, truly. And the quality, and this one is really good as like a palette for like a heap of just one and done shadows. Like, I love this one as a one and done, this one as a one and done, this one, like just so many beautiful shades in here. And even though it looks quite monochromatic, you can get some really very like some different looks from using this palette. And like I've said it before, but the quality, it's just absolutely stunning. Like, it is such a mesmerizing, beautiful palette. And like I said, I was like, nah, not getting it. And it massively took me by surprise. Even though this one is ranking at number 6, which seems quite low, it is still a palette that I really recommend most people owning for different reasons. And it is the Biba palette. Now I'm fairly certain you can still get this one. And this is just a really great core staple eyeshadow palette because it just has, like, especially if you're someone that just like really likes more brown everyday colors, because you've got your kind of more cool tone shades, you got warmer tone shades. The formula of this palette is still to this day, out of all of her formulas, like the mattes especially, like some of her absolute best. Like, they're so creamy and buttery, very easy to use, beginner friendly. And like, she's got some cream to powder mattes in here. It is phenomenal, truly. It's just one of those kind of core staples that if you just want to own one palette, you can just own this one and it's going to cover like every occasion for you. It ranks a little bit lower for me just because I personally would like a little bit more sparkle in here. However, I can appreciate this for the value it brings in terms of all of its mattes. And it's, yeah, it is a gorgeous palette. It's just a kind of a core staple in my mind. And I still think this is one that most people should own. Personally, it's just going to cover you for everything. Top 5. You obviously are guessing, probably. If you've been around my channel a bit, you know what the top 5 are. And if you've been around my channel a lot, you absolutely know what the top 2 are. But number 5 is the large gold palette from Natasha Denona. And I know you can't get this anymore. And my lord, what a shame. Because look at this. Absolutely beautiful. Now, I love this palette in particular for this green shade, this greeny gold shade, and like this mustard shade, but also like this one right here. See the more nuance in these shades compared to like the Midi golden palette. Oh, and like you've got these more like bluey teals. And then this palette, the nuance of this like gold palette is stunning. And you can really create a variety of looks with this palette, but also the quality of this palette, to me, in my personal opinion, really was still far more exceptional than the Midi Golden. This is gorgeous. It's like that Biba palette kind of formula, especially the mattes. They're so creamy and so buttery. it's stunning. And like these little shades here, I'm gonna stop raving about it because for those of you that can no longer get your hands on it, you're gonna be frustrated, and I get it because it took me a while to get my hands on this too. And if it ever comes up again, it's well worth the pickup, truly, it really is. Number 4 is a Cool Tone Lover's Dream, the Glam palette. This palette is actually the palette that started my love affair with Natasha Denona eyeshadows because, you know, quick story. My first Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette was the Lila palette. I picked it up and I think it was probably my experience level at the time, or maybe I got a dud palette or something, but I really had a hard time using that palette in terms of the quality of it. I just really struggled with it and I did not enjoy it. I liked the color story of it, but I just didn't enjoy using the palette itself. And I stayed away from Natasha Denona palettes for so long because of it, because it was so expensive. And I ended up biting the bullet because this one got such good reviews that I was like feeling the FOMO, and I was like, that's it, I'm gonna pick it up. And I fell in love with this palette so intensely that that's how I've now got the Natasha Denona collection that I've got. And I still love this. Like, I used this the other day as well. It is absolutely stunning. This is just, for someone like me who loves cool tones, this is a cool tone lover's dream. I know some of you find that this still pulls a little bit warm on you. So if that's the case for you, then Xenon, which is the one that I don't have, is probably the way to go. But I love this. I love this. I love like this transition shade and like these silvers and like, oh, just everything about this is so perfect to me. I absolutely love it. If I was to lose it right now, I would instantly repurchase it. It's like a must-have in my collection, and it's the same quality as the Retro Midi palette. It is exceptional. And like, I've had this for a couple of years now and the quality is still like A-grade. It has not diminished at all. It's absolutely gorgeous. I cannot recommend Glam enough, truly. Number 3 is unfortunately one that I believe you cannot get anymore either, and is also one that I personally think should remain as a permanent part of her collection. I'm guessing it's something to do with ingredients or something that she can't make it that way, but it should be. It needs to be permanent, and it is the Metropolis palette. Again, so good. Now this is a bigger palette, but the pan size of these is actually the same pan size as the Midi palettes, so you can like chop and change with the Midi palette shades and this one, because these all remove as well. And I love this because it just has everything you could really need. It's got a mixture of cool tones, warm tones. I love this like mustard shade, and like it's got some cream to powder mattes in here, and you've just got some really impeccable shades. Such a variety of tones, such a variety of looks that you can create, but I still think that like every single one of these colors is really everyday wearable, depending on your version of that, obviously. Quality is like flawless. I don't know, I love everything about the Metropolis palette. It is pure perfection to me and absolutely should have remained a permanent piece of her collection in my mind. My top 2 is absolutely no surprise. If you've been around my channel and heard me talk about my Natasha Denona palettes at all before, you know exactly what my top 2 are. My number 2 is the Yucca palette. One, the packaging. Ugh. Apart from my dream, this is my second favorite packaging because I love these colors. Like, look at my dress. Like, I love these colors. This color story is... it's me. It's me. I love this color story. I love a green eyeshadow, but I love a dirty olive green eyeshadow. I love it. Like, every time I see this color story, it makes me smile. Like this shade right here, this one, like, oh. And this was when she introduced her first like sparkling wet foiled formula. Oh my goodness, they are like out of this world. And then you get this surprise little like orangey kind of color too, which is phenomenal and is a cream to powder matte. Like every single thing about this palette is pure perfection to me. Pure perfection. I cannot rave about this enough. Again, another one that's like, if I lost it right now, I'd instantly repurchase it. I always want to have it. It is so good, and I love using it. I love creating looks with it. It's immaculate to me. Everything about it is immaculate. And then number 1, absolutely no surprise, I Need A Nude. I feel like I just don't even need to say anything because I talk about how this is like my #1 palette so often. I also talk about how like if I had to give up my entire eyeshadow palette collection, this is the one that I would keep. And the reason being is that this is a color story that I can just use every single day for any occasion, and it's just perfect to me. Like, it is just such a me color story. It also has her newer formula from Yucca, which is the wet foiled, but then she also introduced the wet sparkling. I could have that back to front in here, and the formulas are perfection, as well as the matte formulas. Absolute perfection. This is a perfect palette for my skin tone. I know a lot of complaints was that this didn't cater to a lot of skin tones, so selfishly this is very much a perfect palette for like me and my pale skin. But I just love it. I love everything about it. I love that it's neutral. I love every shade in here. I love everything about this. The quality is so good, and it just creates like the most simple, effortless looks. It really does. It's absolutely stunning. Another core staple if you're kind of like around my skin tone, or it works for you, in my personal opinion. And another one that like if I lost right now, I would just instantly repurchase. I just think it's pure perfection. So definitely the I Need A Nude is the #1 for me. So that is all of my bigger Natasha Denona palettes ranked. Now I'm going to just speed rank my Natasha Denona mini palettes. I have 8 of the mini palettes, and like I said at the start, I am actually doing a like giant video with like a look of each one of the palettes. But I'm only up to like palette #3, I think, so far as I'm filming this. In terms of quality, I find, apart from one, which I'm gonna mention, I find all other of the mini palettes to be the same quality. I find them to be a really high quality. I think they all remind me of like the Retro Glam mini palette formula, like really gorgeous creamy buttery mattes and like really lovely creamy molten like beautiful metallic shadows. There is one to that exception though, and it's actually #8, and that is the Mini Triochrome. Now the metallics of the Mini Triochrome are very pretty, don't get me wrong. Like this one as well, it's quite beautiful, but the mattes in here personally were such a letdown. Like overall the quality of this was like, it wasn't like a Natasha Denona palette quality that I expect. It was definitely not a solid formula, especially the mattes in this one. But regardless of that, like this one would also just rank last because like I'm not really ever gonna use like a full blue palette, even though I love these two metallics, but I did pick it up for the channel on the review, so I'm not like mad that I picked it up. But yeah, this one is #8, and the quality of this one is definitely like not as high quality as what you would expect from a Natasha formula. However, the rest that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to go through a bit quicker because the rest, like I said, is like that midi retro midi glam type formula. It's exceptional. It's very much just a color preference. So #7 for me would be the Mini Love palette, just because I don't really wear these kind of pinks and purples on the everyday. If you are someone that loves this color story on the everyday, then you'll absolutely love it. And I really like this like little pink shadow here. It is very pretty. But yeah, just for me, personal preference, you know. #6 is the Mini Pastel, and I really love it for this shade in particular. It's so stunning, and I really like this shade as well. Really gorgeous. I actually like all the shades in this, and I think she did a really nice job with this mini of making it actually surprisingly quite wearable for it being a pastel palette, just because like if you actually just took out that green and wanted to say use this in conjunction with like a more brownie colored palette, this would be really everyday wearable for me, at least. Anyway, so yeah, and the quality of this is gorgeous. #5 is the Mini Zendo. This one's really beautiful. It's just a little bit warm leaning for me, but I do really like it, and my favorite shade is actually this like one in the middle, unsurprisingly. It's very pretty. I'm just gonna be saying that about all of them now. It's very pretty. #4 is the Mini Retro. And I do enjoy this one. I really like this kind of army green and these two shadows right here. I think this is a really lovely little mini palette, and if it's your color story, I think you'll really like it. Or if you're someone that just wants to like dip your toes into like, say, like an army green and these kind of shades, it's great. Not one that I would reach for like all the time, but I enjoy it. Number 3 was one that I wasn't actually planning on picking it up based off the promo pics, but then the real life pics of this palette, which I find quite often in Natasha's promo pics to real life pics, made it so much more appealing. And it's the Mini Starlette palette. So in her promo pics, this just looked really, really like pink. And then when I saw this in like real life and in the normal pictures, it's definitely more neutral, just kind of a more, still a little bit like corally, but it wasn't as pink. And I really actually quite enjoy this palette, especially for like the mattes and everything. And I just think the color story is really lovely, a nice kind of little palette that you could like travel with as well, just because it's going to create like really beautiful everyday looks. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one and didn't plan on picking it up until I saw the real life pics. I mean, number 2, the Mini My Dream. Number 1 in packaging, again. This is actually what I'm wearing on my eyes. It's a me color story, you guys. It's just a me color story. Self-explanatory, honestly. Like, these are my tones. I absolutely love these. But like I said, I kind of think this is more of like a I Need A Nude type mini. But I can see the My Dream reference. And like, look, it's my kind of a dream mini. It's such a perfect little color story for me. And then number 1, hands down, is the Mini Gold. This is phenomenal. I love this one. I love this metallic and this one and like this green. And then I love that you get like this kind of neutrally brown, like, ugh, the color story of this one, exceptional. Like, absolutely love this. And probably, to be fair, out of all the minis, if I was to lose them all, I wouldn't necessarily repurchase them because I have all of the bigger palettes. However, if I lost the Mini Gold, I would instantly repurchase it. This one is hands down by far like miles ahead my absolute favorite. I love this so much, and I think this is a color story that regardless of what big palettes you own, this is still unique enough to like bring into your collection on its own. It's absolutely stunning. Can't rave about it enough, truly. All right, my friends, that completes my updated, or my most recent Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette ranking. Hopefully it was a little bit of fun, and hopefully it was helpful in what you were looking for if you were someone that was asking for this video. Fingers crossed. Let me know your thoughts. Like, let me know your thoughts. You guys, you picked my top 2. I know you did. But what's your number 1 palette, or what do you have your eyes on? Let me know down below. I would really be interested to hear from you guys. If you're watching till this point, you know you're an absolute legend. Thank you so much. I truly, truly appreciate you. Extra special shout out to my Lily absolute legends and all my channel members here. Thank you so much for your support, and I hope you have the most amazing day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you next time. Bye.